Welcome everybody, my name is noh'body and I'm from Game Domain. Now in this discussion we'll be talking about Resident Evil 3 and how it might stack up or not stack up against Resident Evil 2, its previous iteration, Resident Evil 3 that was on the GameCube and PS2 and it was remastered on other consoles and such. We're going to see if Resident Evil 3, well not see, but we're going to discuss on whether or not it can, will, should, or probably won't stack up to how it is perceived right now, and to see if it might be a good game, might be a bad game, funny things we've seen online about it, or we're going to be talking about Resident Evil 3 overall. So if you want to see me, fivegeeks.blog, and GamesMaster Prime talk about these kind of things, stick around, and you might get a few little nuggets of gold every now and then. But without further ado, fivegeeks.blog, sorry, I almost butchered your name there. Go ahead and introduce yourself and say a few things about yourself.
Hey, I'm Todd Allen Fisher. You can find me at Todd Allen Fisher on Instagram and Twitter. You can also find me at fivegeeks.blog. So we do run fivegeeks.blog. We also have our YouTube channel. And yeah, we talk about geek stuff, including video.
Alright, I'm just going to assume you said games, cutting out a little bit on there, but that might be on my end. So how about you, GamesMaster Prime?
I run a YouTube channel called GamesMaster Prime where I review classic video games currently on Nintendo consoles, but I plan on expanding out into PlayStation and Xbox when I get enough money to do so.
And I'm noh'body, as I said in the beginning, in the intro. Well, I guess it's still the intro, but whatever. I post random bullcrap about Rainbow Six Siege and other video games trying to impersonate Vanoss, I guess. Yeah, self-deprecating. Here we go. Alright, but without further ado, let's get into the actual discussion of Resident Evil 3 in the game that it shall be. Actually, no, first, did you guys play the original game? The original Resident Evil 3 game? Let's start with that.
I did. I haven't played it in a while. I have a couple friends that are super into it, though. Like, I have one friend who's just literally a Resident Evil fan in general, and his favorite is 3. Out of all of them. Why 3? I could not answer that question for you properly.
I think 3 was a good one. I don't think it was the best one, though. I don't know. That's just me, though. That's a personal little...
I think a lot of people really like the Nemesis mechanics, you know?
Yeah, no. That was,
Maybe.
like, great game, but not my favorite.
Just walk around city blocks and stuff more often, I think, than you were in the second video game. Second was mostly a police station and then underground. Yeah. And the first one was mostly the house and the underground, but the third one you were walking around in the city, so it was like...
Especially in Raccoon City, you know?
The movie. Yeah. You
get to really explore that environment, you know?
I still love the third one, but the second one was my favorite. And actually, this re-release of this remake of 2 has been pretty awesome, and I haven't had a chance to beat it yet.
I know, I'm in the same boat. I haven't had a chance to either. Yeah. But I will say this, and I'm going to be completely honest. I prefer the original Resident Evil 2 versus the remake. I know that sounds really weird. I'm that weirdo.
Is it the nostalgia of like the bad graphics?
It's kind well, it's weird. It's not necessarily just nostalgia. It's there's some things that I liked about the second that I didn't like about the remake. For example, I think if I can remember correctly, there are more endings in the original than there are in the remake. Oh. And I thought that was interesting. Yeah. If I remember correctly as well, I feel like Resident Evil 2 with its... A lot of people, like, the tank controls is always a very decisive topic for a lot of people. When you do it properly, like they did in Resident Evil 2, it creates more horror aspects because you're fighting the controls but in a way that is done on purpose. Where in the remake, I felt they had taken out some of that and kind of tried to replace it with a little bit more action-y set pieces, but I didn't feel... I just feel like it took, like they tried combining the survival action, which is fine. I'm totally for that, and I think they found a good balance for doing so. I just prefer the more survival horror that was in the original version of the game versus the remake.
Well, actually, that's why a lot of people got out of it, because I got out of it on 5, because 4 was really, as they progressed, they stopped being horror, and it was more about action sci-fi, and it just wasn't. Right. It didn't have that root of suspense and, going around dark corners and the weird camera angles. They just lost the rails on that, Yeah, and I think the second one has done a good job of mimicking 4 a little bit, where it's got some horror elements, but it's definitely more of an action-packed game than the originals were, for sure. I don't think most people will still has movements. Like no, you still have that sort of sense of you got to run and save your bullets.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think that's why I said that's kind of what my feeling was, is that they did a good job mimicking the two. I think, and I don't know if this is just me, but I don't. One of my biggest complaints, and I know this is also going to be very contentious for a lot of people who are super into the remake, is I did not like the adaptive difficulty. I really did not like the adaptive difficulty.
Please explain.
Yeah. So
have it. Why it's always.
So, from my understanding, and I'm going based on what I've heard, what I've seen, and what I've experienced. So I don't know if this is 100% true. This is just my remembrance. From what I have gathered, if you are stacking bullets, like you're being able to scrounge and you're being able to save bullets, eventually you'll come up against either more hordes of zombies, or they'll take longer to kill, or they're intentionally trying to get to waste your ammo, and that's the adaptive difficulty.
I don't like that.
So even though you have been able to plan strategically and plan your routes and plan things out and been able to properly manage your inventory, which is already very hard in Resident Evil games, but now all of a sudden, while you're sitting really good, I remember this one boss fight. It's that Birkin boss fight, like the very first one with all the pipes and the steam and everything.
Yeah.
He can become a giant bullet sponge if the game recognizes you have a lot of ammo. He takes so long to beat that first fight, and it's done intentionally.
Yes. No wonder.
I mean, that seems really scummy, to be completely honest. Because if you are a good player and you know how to use these mechanics, and you didn't know about this one singular mechanic, but you knew about everything else, and where the ammo caches are, where the good weapons are, yada yada, and you plan it out perfectly, you're just screwing yourself over. So is it better to go in with a minimum bullets, go in there with 12 rather than 40?
Well, that's one of those things where it's almost incentivized for you just to run and gun through the game versus actually taking your time, and that's the part that bothered me.
Yeah. Especially a game that's supposed to be centered around horror rather than action.
So you could drop down in that scene and fight the tyrant for the first time and have no ammo, no anything, just completely naked, and you just jump in there and you could just pick up the weapons there and kill it probably.
Yes, exactly. So in that very first scene when there's a bunch of those boxes laying around, and that's the other thing that changes too. Ammo drops changes. It recognizes when you have a lot of ammo or not. So if you go down there and you have almost no ammo, it'll give you more ammo, and it takes less time to kill the boss because obviously you have less reserves to be able to do so. Right? The game doesn't want to.
I just play it like I would be hoarding my bullets.
Yeah, no, I think that's how a lot of Resident Evil people played it. That's why it's so funny to find decisive people who are like, oh, the very first time I fought the tyrant, it took forever. But then you also have people who are like, I went through it in less than 5 minutes. It was super fast. What are you talking about? It's because of that adaptive difficulty.
In sort of a messed up way, that kind of Resident Evil has always been trying to screw over the players, though. Their control scheme for the original games, as much as I love those games, they were kind of broken. They were scuffed.
Oh yeah.
And it was kind of on purpose to make you try and figure out how to maneuver throughout this world. So maybe that we could take it as one of those mechanics where it's attempting to screw you over just for the sheer fact that it's a Resident Evil game and that's what they've always done.
Maybe I don't know. I think I kind of appreciate that mechanic. No matter what you do, even if you're a good player, it's still going to be
a challenge.
It's going to put you in that element of survival. Yeah, it's going to be a challenge. You're going to be in that survival horror situation, and immersion is more ensured in that case, rather than it would be if you had, if it didn't, and you had hoarded all the bullets and you had 5 acid rounds and whatever it is you needed.
Yeah. No, it's crazy. I think I can appreciate that mechanic, but we're getting a little off topic. We're talking about more of Resident Evil, 2. We need to be talking more about Resident Evil 3 and what we think is going to come out of this.
So why I wanted to talk about that and circle back around is I felt it was important to bring that up because I don't want Resident Evil 3 to have adaptive difficulty, or if they're going to do it, they need to better balance it.
Or make it optional.
Or make it optional. I like Resident Evil 3, and my worry is that how Nemesis plays into the original one, right? You have certain set pieces, right, where he'll show up, but he also, I think, if I remember correctly, does have a little bit of randomness where he comes from. But I know there are certain scenes where he will always show up, right?
Yeah.
And one of my concerns is, are they going to make him pop up more often when you have a lot more reserves to try to force you to waste ammo on him, or is he going to, you know what I'm saying?
Or
like,
it's gonna be like a Arcane where it's just random. And if it's random, I would prefer that a lot more because it's like, oh, well, I got to get my ammo up.
And that's the other thing that a lot of people are like, I'm thinking about too, is like, how much is he going to end up being like the tyrant, right? How much is he going to wander around and just kind of be there, or is he going to be much more of a integral plot? Because he's supposed to be very important to the story and how that plays out. So, I mean, the entire point, it's Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, right? Like, it's literally Nemesis. So, I realize you're going to have to use sort of the tyrant mechanics you've already made, since it's really easy to just plug in place, but there's got to be a lot more to Nemesis than just basically looking like a different version of Tyrant.
Well,
yeah.
See the mechanics, I feel like they're gonna stay somewhat similar. Like even if we hate it, they're gonna stay somewhat similar because it worked, right? People would play the game regardless of that mechanic, and even though people are complaining about it, they might, if they really, because this is a company that has, gone downhill when it comes to taking care of the community.
I don't know if I would necessarily say they've gone downhill. I think they started going downhill.
More frequently, they have been not doing what the community wants. Not
well, I was going to say they started going downhill, but they've kind of picked it up pretty good when it comes to their Resident Evil franchise, actually. I mean, if you look at just in general, like how they've been able to scrape back from Resident Evil 6 and make Resident Evil 7, which is like easily one of the better Resident Evil games, and then doing the remakes like people want. They're slowly coming back around, I think. But I think with Nemesis, what's an important part about that is, remember, when you have the choice, like I think they still need to have the choices, right? Like in the original, where you had the choices of fighting him or running away. Because if you fight him, you get I believe it's a gun part each time to get one of the strongest guns. So, that's a very interesting thing. Are they going to continue that sort of style where you get the choices of fighting him or running? Or are they going to make it more free flow where he just shows up, and if you do it in certain sections, you then get a random chance to get the gun piece? Or are they, like, what I'm saying? Like, how are they going to do that, or are they just going to nix that out completely? It's very interesting to think about how they might try to do that.
Because it's like that has always been like a massive thing, I guess. Not massive, it was a key, it was an integral part of the game, I guess.
Yeah.
So thinking of like, what if they change that integral part? Like, what effects would that have?
Yeah.
Would it be a better game or a worse game in your guys' opinion?
Well,
I like you said, maybe you should just have it like set up with where it's optional to play it one way or the other.
That would be the best solution, obviously, but that's not a solution that, if you're thinking about it from the developer's end, that they're going to want to do, right? When you're in the creative process of making a game, you want it to be your vision, and that's it. You don't want to have to try to compromise that vision to please fans all the time. And I don't think this is a type of company that's going to do that. So I don't think they're going to do it with the third one.
Yeah, that was kind of my point with the whole downhill thing. It's like, it's not that they make bad games, it's that they just don't make games that are super, 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 towards the community. More so, it's just like, you guys asked for something like this, so we're going to give it to you.
Yeah, RE2 was one of the like few times where like it was asked for, and you got it, and they did a pretty good job of faithfully recreating that game, but with obviously changes that they felt were necessary, and that's totally fine. Yeah. People still were receptive to it, and they enjoyed it. But if you change too much, that's the problem, right?
Yeah, the extra games add more to the story, like Runaways and the Ghost Survivors. I only played one of them, and I haven't beaten it yet because I was going to release a video on just playing the mini game, and I still haven't. I've got like 12 minutes of just video edit of my death over and over again.
Right, exactly.
But I think there's even a picture line in the main game of some of the stuff that's going on in the other game. So you like all of this is happening at the same time. So wonder if some of this storyline isn't also going to be happening on similar times as Part 3.
Well, I was going to say, what we've already recognized between RE2 is, and I like having the alternate endings, but I know that the reason why they cut them out is, it's one, for simply time, and two, because if you noticed in the story that there were plot elements that were changed. There were certain things that were tweaked and changed because they wanted it to properly fit into the timeline that they had already created. So they wanted to change up little things so it fit better in the whole grand scheme of Resident Evil, right? So I'm thinking that they're going to do the same thing with RE3, where they're going to change up certain plot key details so that it matches up better with the rest of the Resident Evil story they've been making. Now, as for Nemesis, I think the thing I'm concerned about is if you don't bring up the scenarios where you have the run or flight and run or fight and having the options to get these better items. If it becomes just purely RNG, that can be very frustrating. I mean, can you think about it? Like, yeah, you fight Nemesis and you get a chance, like, you know, a 20 or 15% chance to get a random item or one of the, you know, good weapon pieces. That would be very frustrating. Because then at that point, it feels like you're farming them just to get these weapon pieces versus a scenario system that if you manage to beat him and knock him down, then you do get a weapon piece, you know?
Yeah, that should be what it should. It should always be there, the main weapon pieces like that. I mean, I could see maybe just like, oh, here are some extra rounds or something if you do this. But the main pieces should always be there, I think.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah,
now,
I think we can agree on that.
I think the other thing is, are they going to let him keep his rocket launcher?
They have to. I'm sorry. That thing was terrifying and amazing.
Oh, it's terrifying as hell, but can you imagine it in a more action-packed game?
Oh, man.
It'd be very frustrating.
Every time he pulls it out, it's going to be like a miniature cutscene, just like, turn.
I know, right?
It's like, oh, I got to run.
Exactly.
Yeah. Myself again.
There are so many good things they could do with Nemesis if they do them properly. And the thing is, like I said, obviously they're going to take what they've built for the Tyrant and then just improve it for Nemesis. I mean, because you can't do the exact same thing as the Tyrant. People will just get bored of it. But the Nemesis is much...
Yeah. The
thing is, Nemesis is faster than the Tyrant. He's much more aggressive. And in my mind, I think he's much scarier the fact that he uses weapons. Like, you know, I think he's just a much scarier version of Tyrant. Because, I mean, Tyrant, let's be honest, he's just a hulking mass that he does follow you, but he just kind of walks after you.
He's like Michael Myers.
Like, Nemesis is like, I'm going to sprint at you, and I'm going to kill you. Oh, sorry, language.
Oh, no, it's cool. I'm editing it. It's gonna be completely out.
It's just much scarier to have somebody who's full sprinting at you, who's also happened to be holding a rocket launcher.
Yeah. So I saw a few things on Reddit because you guys, beyond with what you think of the movies, some people are talking about what if they have an Alice Easter egg because she was very tied into the whole Nemesis storyline for the movies. Would you guys think that like just having an Easter egg for that would be bad, or do you think that would be a nice little nod? Like not having it as a mechanic, but like having it as like an Easter egg.
A small Easter, like maybe there's a movie, it's Resident Evil the movie, or something. I don't know. It's background, you know, somewhere. The movies were visually beautiful pieces of art, but the writing was shit.
I didn't like anything to do with the movies.
I actually love the
everything
movies.
About it.
I have all the movies right here on my desk. I love the movies.
They are
so bad, but I bleeping love them.
So bad.
I bleeping love
Nemo
them.
language.
I don't know.
If you put the thing is, if I remember correctly, they've kept the movies their separate canon from the games, right?
Yes, they have.
So if you put that Easter egg in there, you're almost kind of canonizing it, and I don't really want that, man.
I mean, not really, because Resident Evil 7 had a bunch of Easter eggs towards like other titles and all that.
Yeah, but still, it feels like you're putting it in the universe, and that makes it potential to be canon, and I'm not cool with that.
I think it could be potentially canon within like someone's head canon, but not within the official canon. I don't know.
The thing is, there's enough people who could claim that it's canon now just because if you see an Easter egg.
With a big movie poster in the background, and that worked as a cool hint, you know, like as an Easter egg to Fin Fang Boom, whatever.
I don't know.
It's a movie.
I'll put it this way. I prefer they wouldn't. That's all I'm gonna say.
Okay, all right, that's fair. I wouldn't mind. I personally wouldn't mind. Like it's not like I want to put it in there.
Who wouldn't.
I'm not. I wouldn't like, love it if they put it, or I wouldn't hate it. I'd just be like, oh, okay, that's pretty cool, and then I'd like move on with my day. This is just something that Reddit brought up to me when I was
If they
looking
did an Easter egg to like Dawn of the, I would like a Dawn of the Dead Easter egg.
Oh, Dawn of the Dead Easter egg, that'd be pretty funny actually. Yeah.
But I do have the question: do you guys know? Have they confirmed if they're using the same engine or if they're changing it?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, the old engine wasn't bad, so they could probably keep it.
I was gonna say I have to imagine with how quick it's coming out, it has to be on the same engine, right?
But it's also a company that liked to change engines a lot for previous titles.
This is true,
so...
but I mean, I got a sneaky suspicion that it's going to be the same engine.
Yeah.
And look, don't get me wrong, nothing wrong with the engine that they're using. I have no problem with that. It's just more of a when you come off from Resident Evil 2 remake, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're looking at it, and you're like, this is visually stunning, and look at what they've been able to do, and oh my god, this looks great. Are you going to have that same impact with RE3? I don't think you are, because it's going to look very similar, and because of that, you're not going to get that hype as much as you would have when it was RE2, because
I mean that all depends on like the way you play the game. Like if you play Resident Evil 2 remake and then play Resident Evil 3 remake, you're probably not gonna have the same effect. But let's say you play Resident Evil 3 and then you play the remake, then you're like, wow, they really upped this part, that part. You know, this mechanic's better, this one's cleaner.
That's true, but I'm just saying, in the scope of the grand scheme of it, you know, because we hadn't seen a remake at all for a while up to that point, then to see your RE2 drop, and you're like, wow, this is so good, and then literally, what is it, like a year later, you're getting RE3. Like, are you gonna get the same impact you did with RE2 remake that you for RE3? I don't think you are. You're not gonna get the same impact. You're not gonna get as many wows and look at how much stunning this is. What you're gonna actually do is what it's gonna do is it's gonna draw comparisons to RE2 a lot. You're gonna have people going, it looks the same as RE2. It looks good like RE2, but it looks exactly the same. And when you don't step up like that, you get a lot of criticism for it. So that's the downside, right?
I mean, I'm just not a part of that hate part. Like I mean, this I understand that is probably gonna happen, but like I don't claim that kind of like, I guess, opinion on games. Like, if it's a good game, I'm gonna respect it, even if it looks exactly like the other games.
No, 100%. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying that I worry about. I'll put it this way: I worry about sales figures, and not in the way that like, oh my god, they're not gonna make enough money. They will. Mm-hmm. It's more of, will they make as much money as they did with RE2, and thus make them incentivized to continue doing remakes or not? Yeah. And my answer is, I don't think, with how quick this one's coming out, I don't think they'll do another remake right away. They're gonna wait.
Mm-hmm. I think it would be really cool for them to do like the first 5 games as a remake.
I honestly, I don't know if we had to do the first 5. I definitely want a 4 remake. Mm-hmm. I know it sounds weird because it's not that old, but can you think about RE4 on that engine they're running? It would look so good. Yeah. It would look so good.
It was already RE4 was already kind of like made like a B movie, you know, action film with your ship blowing up at the end, and you know,
that was, you wouldn't even have to change much of anything.
This kind of thing, this engine,
It basically just be an engine port.
Now, with PS5 coming out, are they going to be pushing that toward PS5 remastered, or are they going to just launch it on this one on the PS4?
You know,
did they give a release date?
Yeah, it's coming out in, wasn't it January, February, March? I think it's March, isn't it?
It might be on both then. It might be like a title for the next generation consoles, but also be available on previous.
Here's what I think they're going to do. Here's what I actually think they're going to do. So, I definitely agree that they're going to end up on both, but if they're smart, which, let's be honest, Capcom isn't always smart, but if they're smart, what they'll do is shortly after the release of PS5, they'll release like just the remake package deal where you get both games together on the PS5 with like improved fidelity because it's on the PlayStation 5, right? That would be a fantastic way to do it, because I think isn't Resident Evil 2 remake wasn't already at 60, right? It was only at like 40, right?
Yeah, like 45. It wasn't a full 60, yeah.
So can you imagine if they decided to do a package deal? And instead of being like 60, instead of, you know, making like $65, $70 or something like that, or somewhere around there, where you get a slight discount for buying the package deal, kind of like you normally would. I think that would be fantastic. I think that would sell incredibly well.
I think I'm going to get on the release date. I didn't realize it was this soon. This somehow slipped by me. I'm gonna have to get my Best Buy card out and get this going.
Yeah, no, it's coming pretty soon here.
Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, it would.
It's kind of like
And,
The
you know,
Last of
just
Us when The
patch
Last of
up
Us
the-
did that, right? You know.
Mm-hmm. Did Last of
Yeah,
Us 2
actually,
get released?
I think
I haven't heard anything about that in a while.
Last of Us 2? No, that Last of Us 2 is not coming until the PS5 launches.
Aw, come on.
Oh, is it not? Have they?
But
I believe
I had that
it's,
on my
it's not
pickup
supposed to be.
list
Oh,
here.
put it this way: it's not supposed to be until holiday of this year, from what I last remember seeing,
Mhm.
which is also the rumored release of the PlayStation 5 and Xboxes. So,
I mean, rumor
I
release,
imagine-
but they release them like
Wow.
at that time, like every time they release something. So
yeah, I imagine
Yeah.
it will re-release for the PS4 as well for people that don't buy the PS5 right away, but they want it to be on the PS5 as one of the exclusives to sell the system.
yeah. Okay, so
ADHD
what do you guys
problems,
think if in like 20 years they remaster like Resident Evil 7?
In 20 years?
Or
My
like
gosh.
10, 12.
Well, that'd be great, but I don't.
But like imagine,
Whatever.
alright, so we have Resident Evil 2, right? And they remastered
Yeah.
that and it was wonderful. So how would they
Yeah.
take a game that at this point in time looks beautiful and remaster that?
Well,
Like, how would
I
one
mean,
go about that?
the obvious thing to do is that you know, I imagine within 10 to 20 years you're gonna have a lot more VR stuff happening. So it's just making it look really pretty in VR. And the thing is, it already looks pretty in VR because I know it's on the PlayStation VR, but just like make it even more amped up VR. Like, because I imagine what's going to happen is I've already seen
It's a
prototypes
suit.
of those like gloves that you can put on that you can actually feel things in VR.
Mhm.
So then all of a sudden now you add that into Resident Evil. That shit would be creepy as hell.
Oh god, like imagine having like a suit that you can feel and you just hear bugs
Yeah.
behind you and then it's just
Like I was
little
gonna say, like
tabs on
you
your
like
back.
crawling in like those areas, and you had like bugs crawling over your hands. Oh god,
Ah,
that would be the way to go
Um,
if you're gonna do it. You know.
ah, man.
It pinches you a little
Imagine
bit.
playing like Call of Duty though and you just get like your arm chopped off. Just like Alright. just you're
Nice.
sitting
Yeah,
there
that
in
would be
VR
cool.
and just like you just like how they implement pain in a VR game.
Okay, this may be a weird thing, but I really actually kind of hope that I want to see Resident Evil 4, and I kind of like the idea of the Resident Evil 4, but I kind of also hope that after 3 they just go their own route away from the originals and then do their own story that keeps it more grounded in horror rather than sci-fi action.
Mhm.
And then silence happened. But I don't know. Yeah.
I mean, like, I really, really like action games and I really like horror games. So when I see them combined, I don't really, like, I don't throw a fit about it, but I do know that a lot of the Reddit community and a lot of the Resident Evil community, they're like, oh, well, we only think that Resident Evil 1 through 3 and a little bit of 4 are, like, real Resident Evil games. Everything after that is just a cash grab, yada yada. But I like both genres, so, like,
Yeah.
if it's more action-packed, then
Fair
I'll
enough.
be content. If it's more horror-oriented, then I'll be content. Like, it's really hard for them to fail
Yeah,
unless they try and make
yeah.
it like a comedy or some crap.
That's true. Yeah. I don't know what stopped me. I guess I've never been much into the. I guess it got too sci-fi. I think with 5, and I looked at the game. I watched some of my friends play it, and I was like, I'm just not interested. I just after 4 that was. But I mean, yeah, I don't mind if it's sci-fi horror as long as the horror is still there. It just didn't feel like that the horror was still there. It
Yeah.
seemed more.
It got more gun oriented.
Yeah, it seemed like they
and
lost
it was less horror, more survival.
Yeah.
While the previous games was it was a nice little connection because in like Resident Evil 1, you had like a pretty good balance between survival
Yeah,
and
you have the big scary.
yeah, and it was full of jump
So-
scares and crap, which is now looked down upon.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of wondering how they might go about all of that stuff. Because the gaming community has definitely looked down on
scare in
jump
a video
scares.
game is classic. I always like the jump scares. I mean, I want the controller to shake. I want to be creeped out.
Mhm.
I mean, maybe that's just me because I like horror, but I mean, I also don't like horror movies where they rely on it too much. You got to earn that shit.
Yeah, see, that's the difference between a jump scare in a movie, though, and a jump scare in a game. A jump scare in a game,
That's
you are
right.
there in the moment. You can control something. While
And you're
in a
immersed,
movie,
and
it's just kind of, oh, okay,
The movie-
that happened.
Yeah. As the cat or the phone rang. But you know what movie actually earned the jump scares, I think, was A Quiet Place. But that's my tangent for that right now.
Yeah, we can't get
I mean,
we can't get into that though. That's
I was gonna say I'm not much of a horror movie guy, so I don't.
Yeah. If to segue it back, if Resident Evil went more around those lines, to earn those jump scares and to get those creepy camera angles and the creepy sounds. The sounds of this game of RE2 is really, they really creep you out. So that's what I got the PlayStation 4 in the first place was to be creeped out by Resident Evil anyway. So.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah, I'm probably gonna try and get both next-gen consoles so I can, on one I can use my controller I like, and on the other one I can play Resident Evil and Last of Us 2. I don't know. People said the whole zombie genre is dying, but yeah, true.
Yeah.
But it seems like it's still pretty much
in video games. It's still living.
Yeah. I mean, we also have The Walking Dead going on for its 12th season.
Gosh, I'm gonna be honest. That show needed to stop.
It needed to stop when they killed Glenn, personally.
that show needed to stop like a couple seasons ago.
Yep, and they killed Glenn a couple seasons ago.
They should have killed Negan, and then that was it. Just left it. But they're trying to capture the comic series, so it's like a comic
I know, but there's
show.
a point at which you need to realize you need to stop.
Yeah, it's not as popular.
Comic series can keep going because you have It's different in comic form than it is in series form. It does get. Well,
yeah.
I just feel like that in the series, it was so depressing. Like if I was in a sour mood, I would not want to watch that series. I'd sometimes saved it up for like 5-10 episodes, and okay, I'm ready, and I'll watch it. But it's just so morose all the time. I mean, Zombieland.
I'll put it this way: I didn't even. I'm gonna be one of those weirdos, I guess, probably, but I didn't even really like it that much, to be honest. Like, it's not a bad show.
Zombieland?
No, Walking Dead. I didn't like it that much.
Walking Dead, yeah.
Like, it's not bad. I just didn't like it that bad,
And I'm sitting here with a hat signed by half the cast, just like, oh.
Yeah. It's not a bad show at all, but I think I'll put it this way, I think it got really overblown. Like, it got super hyped up to the point where I was like, nah, fam, it ain't that good.
Yeah, I have to agree. It is very overrated, and it's a mediocre show. It's not amazing, it's not terrible, it's just there. Yeah. It's mediocre. My opinion.
It's not bad at all. It's just it's got good production value. The acting is good. It's just the story for me is like
Yeah, the acting is actually surprisingly good for how much they get paid. They actually used to not get paid at all. For one of the seasons, they didn't get paid for the first few episodes.
Yeah.
I think that was season 2. Yeah, the actors didn't get paid at all.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's because
season 1 was actually pretty good.
Yeah, season 1 was directed by a friend of the writer of the comic. While the person that directed The Mist, that person directed the first season, and then he got fired. And then it just went downhill, to be honest.
I gotta say the first season's probably the best one in my opinion, but I know a lot of people are like, no, it's not. That's the worst season.
No,
season 2 is probably season 2 or season 4. But we're getting a little off topic. It's still zombies, kind of on topic, but we should get back to the game, the thing that people are, watching.
With good storylines and story arcs, if they can get that into the Resident Evil games in the future, even if it goes a little sci-fi, if you can hang on to the horror aspect and keep the zombie sounds, I think you're going to be able to please everybody. And as long as you also balance the mechanics, like we were talking about, maybe even have it optional. Which is it really hard to have it optional? I mean, is the programming I'm not a programmer. I wouldn't have no clue. But is it that hard to actually have an option where you turn it off?
Honestly, it could be easy, it could be hard. It all depends on how they decide to program it. Because when you program something, there's 1,000 ways to go about it, from my knowledge.
Well, so I'm coming from a different perspective of I'm actually going to school to become a programmer.
All right.
So from this perspective, I can say it can actually be far more difficult than you think, because you create one path that has this whole set of rules, but then you need to create a whole separate path. Even if you have all the assets still made and everything basically seems the same, you basically have to create a whole new rule set for a whole different scenario like that.
Well, let's say
it's like creating alternate endings, except for it's an alternate entire game basically.
Well, let's say that they have this strict storyline, right? But you have these portions of that storyline in which can be optional. So it's there's one path, and then it divides into two, then it corresponds back to the same path. for every time you see Nemesis, right? And could you not just put one value for this side where it's, you know, RNG, and the other side where it's set up, and just that one value changes back and forth, and then that will affect like divot of time?
Well, based on what we've already talked about of how you'd have to do it with the RNG and with all that, the RNG would be one of those things that would be a mechanic that would be throughout the entire game. So anytime you run into Nemesis, there's the RNG value of possibly getting a drop, where and that way, and then now you cut out scenarios entirely. Now you would have to replace back in scenarios, get rid of all of the entire RNG aspect of throughout the rest of the game again, and then create the scenario options.
Okay, yeah.
So
okay.
It is a little bit more involved than you think.
Well,
is it entirely impossible to do? No, not at all. It's not impossible,
yeah,
but it does take up a lot of time.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying it would be easy to do. I'm just saying like I feel like it is doable, especially with the amount of, you know, money and, you know, people they have working on this.
But that's the thing is, do they want to spend the money just to do that, just to please certain fans? That's the thing you have to think about.
Yeah.
The amount of money it would take, is it worth the amount of man hours to do it?
And would that please enough fans?
And then on top of that, if you think about with the scenarios, now you have to create new cutscenes as well to introduce the scenarios that normally aren't there.
Yeah. So
now you're also creating, not only is it programming, now you have more art design and more cutscenes and then more dialogue and there's, So when you think about all of that, now you also have to think about how much room is this going to take on a system? How, like, you know,
like,
so.
Yeah, I knew it wasn't going to just take the programming. It would be a lot of, you know, other modeling and character design and all this other bullcrap that has to go into that if they were to do that. And, you know,
yeah, and that just stacks money. Every time we talk about more and more, it's just more and more money, right?
Yeah. And, I mean...
So that's a lot to make it rain on, just for a few people who want a different option, I guess.
Just to please a couple people, exactly.
Well, there are modders that do, like, very intensive stuff like that, though.
So, there are, for sure.
Yeah.
But they do it mostly in their spare time, and they're doing it knowing they're not going to get paid. Yeah. And they do it typically. And on top of that, it takes a long time to create that stuff. Like, if you look at modders that spend that much time, normally it takes a year or two to create whole projects that are that extensive.
Oh yeah. No.
At that point, you're basically creating a new game, right?
Yeah, well, essentially. And there are people who have, like, done reskins of other games just for the sake of, you know, their personal, you know, playstyle. And I'm just wondering, because Resident Evil 2 had a few people that completely revamped the game with their own, like, little things. So I wonder if you think that any of those modders might come over to Resident Evil 3 and maybe try and change some of the mechanics so it's better suited to the community and what they wanted.
I mean, it's definitely possible. At that point, it just comes down to if Capcom's going to let them do that or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what the mods are usually not available on PlayStation.
Oh yeah, true.
Yeah,
true.
See, that too.
It's pretty much just PC.
It's typically only PC. Yeah. Or you can get it on PlayStation, but you have to go through like many more hoops to get it to work properly.
Yeah. And so I usually have no mods, and then of course you have the people like Todd Howard from Bethesda just go, it works.
It works.
It just works. It just works.
Yeah.
All of this just works.
All right.
Todd Howard.
You love him or you hate
him. He'll never stop being a meme.
Nope. And so yeah, most of the things that are fixed by the fans of the game who just mod it for PC, and meanwhile us people over here with the PlayStation just
you still have plenty of problems, yeah.
Oh wait, PS4 doesn't get mods for Fallout and Skyrim?
Cool.
They do, but it's different.
Oh, because I know Xbox has like a very wide variety.
Yeah.
Like you can literally go to Internet like Explorer and just like download them.
You can get a lot more mods on PC. A lot more mods are compatible on PC.
Yeah.
But you still do have a pretty good wide range on the Xbox and PlayStation.
That's I find that strange, to be honest. I wonder if that's a Sony thing or Bethesda thing.
No idea.
I feel like it's the Bethesda.
I mean, it's just easy to make fun of Todd Howard, so let's just say it's Todd Howard's fault.
Yeah.
Yes, it's might as well.
Don't worry, it just works.
He's pulled. Have you ever played the Outer Worlds? It does sometimes feel like giving Todd Howard the middle finger, like in different places throughout.
It really is. I love. Have you seen Angry Joe? Like his take on it. Literally, I love it. Like when he first landed on the planet, he's just like 16 times the detail. it's just great.
Yeah. I'm uploading videos now. It's like I do Geek and Son playthroughs. My son and I play the Outer Worlds there, and we put it on there. And on the first mission, we were like, "Oh, that dude's Todd Howard."
Yeah, no,
he's the
I just
in the beginning.
Yeah, it's a great game, and the thing is, this is one thing I will say about Capcom is that most games they have made they just look good. Like they just look good.
Yes,
they're always make good graphically intensive games. Now the downside of that is
story.
They have made story. Well, yeah, story isn't always the best on Capcom games. Resident Evil is one of the exceptions. I think their story is pretty good. But here's one thing I think that they do still make errors on is that sometimes they have lots of bugs. like lots of bugs.
Yeah.
I haven't noticed too many because now I haven't played it all the way through for Resident Evil 2, but has the Resident Evil 2 remake had a lot of bugs?
I've seen a couple funny ones with the Tyrant.
It's not as bad as, let's say, the 7th one, but
there's
still a few in there.
You'll still find them on occasion.
You know how it's third person? Yeah. So sometimes your character just disappears.
Third person, yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that one.
Yeah, your character just disappears, and you don't know where you're going. You don't know which direction you're facing. You don't know where your gun's aiming. You're just kind of like sitting there. It's like, okay, and then you just like walk as a ghost. But you can still die. Trust me, you can still die when you're invisible.
Wasn't there one? I didn't personally have this one, but wasn't there one where there was a glitch with the Tyrant, and his head just was spinning, on his head? It was just literally just spinning.
I'm looking this up because I just have to see.
I feel like I've seen that before.
That would be odd because his head's like all kinds of different places, like a Picasso painting. Like his eyeballs over here on his shoulder.
I know.
I just don't. I mean, the glitches though in the games that I've been posting, most of the glitches are in Dead by Daylight and anything that Bethesda has done.
Yes, obviously, when we're talking glitches, Bethesda is the king of glitches.
No, I look it up and it just pops up with a bunch of
Okay.
Yeah, no, nothing pops up.
I thought I saw one where his head was spinning or something like that, but maybe I'm crazy. Let me see if I can
probably was. Yeah. But it was pretty cool. Actually, you know what, though? I will say this about the Outer Worlds. It really well put together. It was just a beautiful game right there from the start.
So, I'm not going to lie. After I looked at the Tyrant, he reminds me of a Bethesda character, Valentine.
Oh, yeah. I kind of like Valentine. He was one of my favorite companions.
Yeah.
Oh, I completely forgot about this glitch. There's a Resident Evil 2 glitch where you can accidentally spawn two Mr. X's.
Oh shit!
You thought you were screwed before.
Yeah.
So yeah, to say that it isn't, have a couple problems, here and there. I believe that got patched out pretty quickly, but it's still funny,
Yeah. That's true. The updates have been coming pretty quick.
Yeah.
So I haven't had those.
Like if you play, like put it this way, if you play Resident Evil 2 now in comparison to when it first released, you probably don't have pretty much any bugs in comparison.
Yeah.
But I mean,
that's one thing about them. They did patch.
Yeah, I mean, just imagine I don't know if this is a company that takes bugs like in alpha and fixes them, or takes them after they've been released and see what bugs people find and then they fix them. I'd imagine it's obviously good in alpha, but
honestly, with how few bugs, there are a couple big ones, but with how few that were actually in the game, I feel like they definitely had testers that tested it most of the way through the game.
Yeah,
and then there were still a couple random ones that came up that they didn't expect or something. Yeah.
And I mean, sometimes it's not even a bug. Sometimes it's just it doesn't load properly or something.
or something like with the Mr. X bug. I think that way it had to happen with some weird specific scenarios that happen when loading in and out of certain areas.
Yeah,
so
that makes sense.
So like with the right set of circumstances, you could get them to spawn twice. So I think it's like one of those scenarios where it's just like, oh, we didn't think anyone would try to do that, and thus it created this bug, you know?
Yeah.
Right. Right. But every player is gonna, and when you release it to the masses, there's always one player that does something that they didn't expect. Do you see that actually?
Exactly.
There was a walkthrough, a speed run of the Outer Worlds in like 12 entire game.
Yeah,
in like
12 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the programs were watching this. And
Yeah, they were watching it. They enjoyed it.
they actually called him out for like not doing any of the story. Like like the speedrunner is straight up just skipping like the entire story.
But at the same time, the designers were just like, I applaud you. You have been able to beat the game in 12 minutes.
Yeah. But they were also like on their faces. They're like sad. It's like you just like completely skipped the whole game we worked tirelessly on. Like there's like a face of defeat on all of them.
Yeah, but the thing is, that's kind of like the point of speedrunners.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's true. But see, also, yeah, that's another thing is that they would probably be able to see where the bugs are and maybe now learn, hey, let's patch those in the next game.
Right, exactly. So, I don't think, yeah, I don't know. With Resident Evil 3, it's one of those things that there's a lot of people who are looking forward to it. A lot of people who are hoping that they fix some of the issues that were in Resident Evil 2 Remake, in Resident Evil 3 Remake. And then obviously, you know, there are people who are just like, yeah, it's Resident Evil 3, I don't care. You know, so.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of hard for them to mess up, to be completely honest. They have set a very good groundwork for everything, and they're doing a very good game that they're going to remake, so honestly, it's just, it's up to what they put the most effort into.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, I feel like maybe at least the people who played Resident Evil 3 and who enjoyed the Resident Evil 2 remake will want to get the Resident Evil 3 remake regardless, at least just to check it out.
Yeah.
So they probably won't lose money from them, but
absolutely not.
If there's mechanics, there's probably a lot of people that are waiting for the reviews to see what it's like before they buy it. Because like Death Stranding, it looked good to me, and I almost pre-ordered it.
Yeah.
But when I heard from a lot of reviewers that it's basically walking simulator, it's like I don't really want to.
It's funny because it's one of those games that I'm still semi-interested in because they've done that game is so different in so many ways. It has a lot of innovation, but equally, games that are innovative aren't necessarily fun games, right? So it's one of those games that I would like to try just to see what it's like. But I don't know if it's a game that I would love to play, right? So,
I mean,
when they talk about the mechanics, like you basically figure out what kind of backpack you want, how far you're going to go, and what you're going to travel.
Well, that, and you also have to think about also like the innovative part with you know, people, all the worlds are sort of interconnected, so people can like, you know, leave you shortcuts from like other players that you wouldn't normally have had access to without the help of other players. So that's always an interesting aspect as well. The downside of that is if the game doesn't do well and you don't have a lot of players, all of a sudden you don't see that kind of stuff, right?
I mean, alright, so it's developed by a very well-known programmer and like head, and also has Norman Reedus, so it was gonna get a bunch of people on board.
Yeah.
Like almost 100%.
Yeah,
you're right. It started that way, but if you look at the concurrent players now, it has tanked.
Oh, I don't doubt it, because I mean, it's a cool idea and all, and they executed it really, really good, but it's just not entertaining for a majority of players.
Right.
Yeah. And it's probably because it's too much. See, I don't know what it is. Just sci-fi alone's not enough for me. Of course, now there's a horror element in that, from what I see from the previews and even the playthroughs of Death Stranding. It seemed too much walking simulator when I was watching a lot of the gameplay, and I was like.
I think it's funny because some of the gameplay when they showed off the trailers, they're like, "Look, there's combat," but like there is combat, but there's not a lot of it.
Yeah.
And Death Stranding was also like made off the footsteps of Silent Hill. Like it is.
Yeah.
So like
I want
That
more
I wanted
Hill.
more. I wanted a Silent Hill.
Oh.
I wanted that way more.
That's
but
the game. See, that's the thing I want out of like Resident Evil. Like, you know, like where you're not even just like you're a cop, but you're walking down the street and shit happens, and all of a sudden you got to get something, and the nearest thing you have is a board with a nail in it, and that's your
Right.
primary weapon for the like half. That's what I want, because
Yeah.
that's like that would be like, you know, more horror movie real.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, I think that's kind of what I liked about. I think that's what I kind of liked about Resident Evil 7, is that you weren't like really an important character at all. You just randomly kind of stumbled into this place because you were trying to find your girlfriend or your wife or whatever it was, or fiance. I think it was fiance if I remember it.
Yeah,
And it was like, it's just that idea is cool. And if you expand upon that, and instead of being in this small like house, expand it to an entire city, that would be cool.
oh, just like the pure apocalypse. Just it's over.
that was Resident Evil 7. I may have to try that and get that.
Oh, you haven't played Resident Evil 7? Yeah,
You do
I
need to play it, yeah.
definitely recommend that game. It is
Five.
amazing.
It is much more horror Resident Evil than the other ones were.
It's
Was it also third person, or had they switched to first person by that?
First person.
it was first person.
First
But
person
it's-
always makes me sick, but I think I might have to play it in 10-minute increments just for the horror aspect of that alone.
Yeah, it's actually worth it. It really is. Like halfway through the game, the enemies get a little repetitive, but like the first half is just super good.
It
Yeah,
definitely
yeah.
changes to
Okay,
more
I'll have to look.
action-packed, like in the
Yeah.
middle part, but then it goes back down pretty fast.
Yeah.
And then
So
I'm not gonna spoil it, but yeah,
No,
I'd like
no,
that.
it's a good
Oh.
game. It's a good game. That's all I'm gonna say.
What switch that they would do, and I know maybe this is a programming issue too, like with the Outer Worlds, because it's only in first person, so I have to play it in short increments. But if they had it not only where you could switch from third to first, but like in Resident Evil Dead Aim, which is kind of a lesser known video game, you actually got to use the light gun for the PS4, which there was one, and not a lot of people know that. And it had like laser sights, and you could calibrate them to make it where like if the laser hits the zombie on the head. But see, you had different calibrations too for different levels. Like if they were too far away, the light would be off. It would only be calibrated to a certain distance. It was pretty cool. But when you got into the shooting mode, see, you were third person the whole game until it was time to draw your gun. And as soon as you did, switch to the first person point of view, and you had to turn your guy around too, because if you didn't, you could get attacked from behind or from the left or right, and you couldn't even see what's going on. So you had to continually move and strafe and shoot, and it was pretty cool.
It was cool, but I'll say this: the story was hot garbage.
Yes.
The story was really bad.
I mean,
I was like, what the hell are they doing? It's a ship. I don't.
Yeah, they were all over the place. You're not this. You're chasing down this bad guy. Oh wait, turns out you're this bad guy. Wait, maybe you're not this bad guy. We don't know.
and that's one of the reasons I think Resident Evil 3 Remake is there's no way it's gonna really flop.
No, it won't flop at all.
Because it has a great story. It has mechanics that work. Okay, great story. It has a moderately good story.
Yeah. It's above average.
Above average, yeah.
I think it'll sell fine. I think they'll make plenty of money. It just comes down to if it's really good, if it's better than RE2 Remake, it'll sell really well, and they're more likely to decide to continue the remakes, or it'll just do moderately well, in which case they'll be like, I didn't make as much money as RE2. We're not doing the remakes anymore for a while, you know?
Yeah, and then they do like RE8, and then they go back to like RE4 or something.
Yeah.
I'll be sad. I think I'll be sad if it doesn't do well. Of course, now, if it's not any good, I won't be sad. It's like,
If it's legitimately bad, it's like...
Because they know what worked in RE2. Yeah. They know what worked. They know that RE2 has done well. They know that's why they're getting a chance with RE3. So they should have this down.
Yeah,
I
have.
They should. They definitely should. But it's just going to come down to if they decide to start taking too many liberties, will that piss off enough fans where they're just like, nah, I'm done?
Yeah, I don't know. It depends.
Because if you start changing up too much of what the original was so good about, then that's when you start running into the problems of pissing off the fans who are loyal, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's
honestly, I remember RE2 better than RE3. Yeah.
The controller scheme is a lot more optimized in the remakes than they were in the original. In the original, you were constantly fighting, and Like the controls were like purposely bad to the point where it's like you have to learn these controls by heart in order to do anything in the game because you're fighting yourself all the time. You're fighting your own like.
Sometimes it was it was different, like with the way that you move.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say I still kind of like the old controls. Like the reason why I think it worked is you were fighting the controls. It added to the horror aspect, like I said before. But the other thing is that you didn't fight a lot of enemies at once. Like you typically weren't fighting more than 1 or 2 zombies at a time at best. Yeah. You know, and it made it much more stressful because, like, you're fighting 1 zombie, but it's taking forever to kill him because you're just having so much trouble trying to aim at him. You know?
Yeah, like dog jumps through window, zombie comes out of the closet.
Yeah. So I like that aspect because by having less amount, you know, I was gonna say by having less amount of zombies, it puts you on suspense when you finally see them.
Either too high or too low, and it would shoot like either. Yeah, and no matter what, the dogs are gonna eat your junk. I mean, it's just.
Just gonna bite it all up.
I gotta say, out of the first few Resident Evil games, that was terrifying.
I just like that aspect though, because the thing is, like I said, like it puts you on suspense the minute you see a zombie. Like in the new ones, you see a zombie, you're just like, yeah, it's another zombie. Like, you know, that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking like the classics. Like every time you saw a zombie, you instantly crap your pants and going, oh god, oh god. Where in the new ones, you're just like, yeah, it's another zombie, all right. You like to the point where like I remember whole sections with backtracking, I would just run past zombies.
Yeah, they. A lot of times with the new game, actually, though, they seem to have a different bullet take than every zombie. So, like, even if a zombie's down, you don't know if it's dead. And that was, I think that's one thing that in the new game that at least that kept the horror aspect alive because you could have downed the zombie. Do I need to go over there and slash the shit out of this with my knife for about 10 minutes before I know that it's dead?
No, I mean, because
I was in the police station chopping limbs off zombies. I'm like, I'm guessing this thing is dead. I don't know, but I'm just making sure I'm not walking by this thing.
Yeah, okay. With Resident Evil 2, though, like, did you guys have the ability to, like, choose your battles, or was it a lot more linear? Well, in the first one, it was kind of, I can run away from this guy, and I can shoot this guy.
It is definitely a little bit more linear. I think the remake did a pretty good job of trying not to keep it too linear. Yeah. But the thing is, like I said, my biggest problem is that even though there were still horror aspects in Resident Evil 2 Remake, I was never nearly as suspenseful. Like when you first start up the game and you see all those zombies and you're on suspense because you're running out of ammo and you're like, oh no. But then after a while, like, it's just more zombies, and like I legit just would run past whole hordes of zombies and just be like, whatever. Like it just, it was
the same thing with part 2.
Suspenseful. It wasn't suspenseful anymore. It might have still been horror, but it wasn't as suspenseful.
I mean, that could also just be a part of the you already knowing the paces of the game, like because you've already experienced the overall the overarching story, and you know what's going to happen when, sort of, and it's not like brand new.
A little bit, but it's different when, like I said, it's different when you have such few zombies with kind of bad controls that like you're constantly freaking out and you're on suspense the minute you see them, versus you have very good controls, but instead of having less zombies, because that would defeat the purpose of having good controls, they just throw more at you. Like, there's got to be a better way to do that, like to still keep you on suspense.
I think it's funny how it is actually a critique of a horror game to have good controls.
I know, it's weird. It's one of
Resident
times.
Resident Evil and Silent Hill are like the only games I can look at and be like, all right, bad controls, that's okay.
Yeah, the bad controls almost added to the suspense and the horror aspect of the game. Like, it's a weird thing to say, but it legitimately did. Now, if you were to play Resident Evil in VR and then have those like pop-ups and stuff, that would be a whole different way to do horror, and it would still freak people out. But bad controls
cool, though, is if they had a mechanic that all of a sudden when you had a sanity meter or something, or fear meter, like
kind of like Eternal Darkness or whatever,
or like
the thing I think had that.
I think my favorite's like the boss fight from freaking Metal Gear, where you had the guy that would read your memory card and just screw up your controls and stuff. Yeah. The Mantis or whatever.
That Mantis
like the
weird.
Stress you are.
That would be great. Throw that stuff in some of the horror aspects in the Resident Evil or Silent Hill. That would F people up.
Silent Hill did have something like that. Like it read.
Oh, did they? Okay.
Yeah, it was because they were developed by a very. Yeah, but no, they were. Oh man, it was terrible.
See, I haven't played a lot of the Silent Hill games, so I'll you know.
Yeah.
I'll play fully, honestly.
I mean, with your channel, you can definitely incorporate
Silent Hill
1, 2, and 3. Just like.
Well, the thing is, I plan on doing like I already have a whole thing set up for October where I'm gonna play a bunch of horror games. I already have that. Like I want to do Eternal Darkness just because I love that aspect of the sanity meter and like literally your TV just going black, pretending like your console got shut off and stuff like that. That's just cool. That's just cool.
I want to play that. That does sound awesome. Eternal Darkness is called. I'm gonna.
Yeah. I believe it came out on
that if it did that for Silent Hill.
It was third person too, by the way.
Or Until Dawn, the sort of storyteller game.
Until Dawn was an amazing game.
I did play Until Dawn. And I'm not gonna say it's amazing.
Okay. Sorry. The writing was hit or miss at certain points. I enjoyed the game. It's not an amazing game. I enjoyed the game. Just like I know the Resident Evil movies aren't good. I just enjoyed the movies.
Here's what I did enjoy about Until Dawn.
It's fun being in a bad movie. Yeah. It's like you're in a B movie.
Immersed in it.
Yeah.
Put it this way, Silent Hill. Until Dawn was super good if you had like 3 or 4 friends over, all playing together, and you guys are just getting crap faced. Like you're just drinking and laughing your crap off at how B movie the game is. Then it's good.
That was part of what I liked about it, is how like it was like a bad teen movie. Like a bad
No, exactly. Movie. It's good in that concept, but if you played it by yourself, it wasn't as fun. It was way more fun with a group of friends that were just B-movieing, watching it, and reviewing it in that way.
Yeah. I played it with a friend over at their house, because I don't have a PS4 with me. So I guess I kind of had that, I had a friend with me, and we were like making fun of it.
So you
already
had
oh god, what the fuck is going on here? So yeah, it was...
Right, exactly. It happens. Just dolphin noise.
Almost Until Dawn, but I did it all by myself. But I was still immersed, and I still like loved the sort of nostalgia, nice sort of 90s, 80s B movie feel to it.
I heard Man of Medan was not nearly as good though.
All right. Well, we're going on a little bit of a rant away from Resident Evil.
I mean, at least we're staying in horror. At least we're staying in horror.
Yeah, but
it's just, I'll put it this way: the one thing if I'm looking forward to anything for RE3 is I want it to be more suspenseful and more horror based, but I don't think they're going to be able to properly pull that off for me. But at bare minimum, I want them to obviously keep the proper Nemesis system, but also change up how he works, change up like maybe where the scenarios are at, maybe have a little bit of like I would like if they had scenarios. It would be really cool. I want them to keep the scenarios of Nemesis, but make it more RNG when the scenarios happen. So like rather than it being the same set piece every time, you just randomly all of a sudden, bam! Now you're in a fight with Nemesis. Oh crap! Like I don't have enough ammo. Now I have to run away or something. I think that's cool.
I think one way to succeed in Resident Evil 3, if they want to kick it up a notch, they need to do the stuff that use the system. I mean, like The Last of Us had used the controller. Not only did it shake, but it has a speaker in it. They used the speaker. If you played a recorder, it would play out of your controller rather than the TV.
Yep.
And I thought that mechanic was so awesome. They should keep that. I mean, they should do that in more games. Yeah, use the system. Make it blink. Make it change colors on your controller when things happen. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I agree that there is definitely plenty of things they could do to continue innovating and making it more horror based. Like, can you imagine, like, with like Nemesis or something, rather than like kind of like I think with Mr. X, because didn't it vibrate the controller as the closer he got, the more violent the controller like vibrated or something like that? That would be cool.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if he got like really close to you and you just like out of your controller just hear him breathing behind you or something?
Oh,
that would be creepy as heck.
He breathe through the controller. That would be freaking awesome.
Yeah, stuff like that. Yeah, I think there's things they could do.
You know how the DS had like the ability to like you blow into the mic.
Oh yeah. No, I think
when
there's
you're going to
definitely-
school, you say to Bill, put that stuff in there.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying, like, I think I want them to continue trying to innovate, because to me, if they just literally take RE2 and basically reskin it into RE3, I don't think that's good enough.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm scared,
No,
and
it
I'm
won't be.
legitimately scared that's kind of what they're doing.
Like,
I mean, I'll still enjoy the game, but it won't be as enjoyable as me playing RE2 because I've already
Yeah.
played it. Right? I mean, it's,
Exactly.
it'll still be fun, but it won't be what it could be.
yeah,
Exactly.
I'll enjoy the game. I just won't give it as much praise. I'll definitely like state the fact like, hey, this is literally just like a port of RE2 with Nemesis involved.
Right, exactly. And that's the part that scares me the most. Like, it just... it's one of those things, because the thing is, I look at it and go, it's only like a year or so after RE2, and in reality, they basically were probably making these games, like, basically at the same time, so it's actually probably been working on it for several years versus, like, only the 1 year. But it's still one of those things that it just... Even if it's not a direct rip, like, if you make it look... Because the thing is, I already suspect that it's obviously the same engine, so it's going to look pretty much the same. The mechanics, I'm sure, is going to be basically the same. But if you don't change up enough of what that game makes good, which is basically Nemesis, if you don't change up how he reacts versus, like, Mr. X, it's going to really change up. Like that's going to... I think that's going to be the big make it or break it, right?
One thing they could do to make it seem like it's a newer engine is to just get a better shader. Get better shaders and then make it look slightly better to the point where it's not 1-to-1 with Resident Evil 2.
Right. Yeah,
it would be cheeky, but it would work.
Yeah, to a degree. I like, honestly, like I said, I think the make it or break it for this game is it's gonna be Nemesis. It's just straight. That's just simply it. Like, if Nemesis reacts and acts basically like a Mr. X clone, I don't think it's gonna get nearly that good of reviews. But if it's completely different and more like what actual Nemesis is from the original games, you're more likely to get a lot more people liking it. And then if you innovate on top of that, and then if you innovate on top of that, then now you're talking, a really good game,
Yeah. But I think we're
you said they were working on Resident Evil 2 for a long time. Maybe they were also had some of Resident Evil 3.
Oh, undoubtedly, I think they were working on them at the same time. Like, there's just... Especially if they're using the same engine and having a lot of the same... I have to believe that they were basically 1-to-1ing them, almost. That's why, like, you only have, like, a 1-year difference, because they're basically being made at the same time.
Yeah.
Alright, but we're getting pretty far in this podcast, so sorry to cut you off, but we're going to end it right here. If you want to see more discussions from the Domain Legion podcast, go ahead and head over to our channel on Game Domain. And while you're there, might as well check out some of our other videos on Game Domain. We have exclusive interviews with certain game devs, and yada yada. We do theories on, lore of games. You can also check out Film Domain, where we talk about films and other such things. And if you want to see yours truly, noh'body, GameSpecial Prime, or fivegeeks.blog, check the description down below, and we'll see you guys all in the next one. Peace.
Good night, everybody.